Hi, today I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm so excited to be here with Leslie Howard, who is a yoga teacher that specializes in the pelvic floor. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, Laura.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm dying to ask you about the pelvic floor and how it relates to our sexuality.
Okay, well, the pelvic floor muscles are a group of muscles that support our organs. So it supports the vagina, it supports the bladder, the uterus, and the rectum in a female. And as we age and as we go through our life, certain things happen to our pelvic floor muscles. The prevailing thought is that as we age, if you're female, that the muscles get really loose and slack. And so, but I have found in my work that that's actually not necessarily true. It's interesting because I teach mostly yoga students, and generally yoga students are people who are really concerned about their health and maybe a little more fit than perhaps the average American. 30 to 40% of the women I teach find that they have too much tone, meaning too much tightness in those muscles, whether they've had a child or not. So this is kind of like, people don't even think of it that way. They're just shocked that they could be too tight in this area.
Right.
And it can cause pain. It can cause actually quite a few problems. It can go along with conditions like irritable bowel syndrome, cystitis, things like that, pain with intercourse, conditions like vulvodynia, things like that.
Does a tight pelvic floor correspond with a tight vagina versus a loose vagina? Because this is another thing we hear a lot.
Right.
And I often, when I'm teaching, I talk about how arousal is really important for women to be fully engorged. And that's actually what helps to make the vagina more snug and fit around a penis better. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering how the pelvic floor also plays a role in tightness or looseness of the vagina.
Well, you know, I got into this work because I had a lot of problems, and my prevailing problem that got me to the physical therapist was I was having painful intercourse. And as soon as the woman examined me internally, she diagnosed me with hypertonic, which means too tight, pelvic floor muscles. So when I thought about it, like, why do I have these tight muscles, you know, and I thought about the history of my pelvis, you know, I had been raped when I was 20, and I think that also, even being a yoga teacher, I think that my posture, when I was sitting or driving, I tended to kind of start to sink, and that can contribute to tightness. So I think it was a lot of things that came together that made it too tight. To answer your question, I think that you might have overly tight muscles and not know it, and then it's like one more thing happens, and then that kind of pushes you over the edge into pain.
So what to do about the pelvic floor, whether it's too tight or too loose? And I'm going to ask you about Kegels, which I've heard you talk about before.
Yes. Okay, so as I said earlier, the prevailing wisdom is females get loose or lack tone in the pelvis, and then their doctors say to them, oh, do Kegels, or every woman's magazine out there says do your Kegels. And in my workshops, where I have like 30 women, and I've taught the workshop a lot, I say, well, did the doctor tell you how to do Kegels? And I've never once had a student say, oh yeah, they took like 15 minutes and taught me how to do it. That infuriates me a little bit, because it's like, if you're female, you're programmed to know what a Kegel is. I mean, right? There's this assumption that if you're female, you know what it is.
We don't even know all our parts.
Right, exactly. And then what I read in women's magazines about Kegels, or even, I will say that there was a medical foundation, I took the brochure for bladder problems, and it said the same thing that you read over and over again about Kegels, is find the muscles that cut off your urine flow. And that is inaccurate. It puts your brain more towards the urethral sphincter, which is not really what you're trying to access with a Kegel. And again, women, what I find when a woman thinks they're doing their Kegel, they're actually squeezing their butt. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting culturally, we're very split, we're very sexualized in one way, and then we're completely cut off in another way. So it's like, yeah, sex is great as long as it feels good, but once there's a problem, there's not a lot of resources.
So how would you teach pelvic floor exercises?
Okay, so after you've done your massage or your analysis and you're pretty sure that you don't have the too tight problem, I recommend putting, this is a couche ball, you can get it in a kid's store, and there's a little super ball that is in the center of this. And you could use a super ball, but these little fringy things actually soften it a little bit, so it's actually quite comfortable on a female perineum. So you put this, when you sit down, you can be sitting on a chair or the floor, you put it right here to put your brain there. So you just place it under yourself accurately. You make sure it's not touching the vagina, it's not touching the anal sphincter. And then your brain, it's just very lightly pushing up into the perineum. And then you practice contracting. And the first thing you're going to notice is that your butt grips and that your anal sphincter is happy to grip. And maybe if you've done Kegels correctly, your vagina walls contract. And this is just slightly different than that. So you're starting at that central place, and then ideally your brain starts to go vertical so that you're getting each layer as you go up. So you don't always have to sit on something. It's really just to build the connection with your brain and a part of your body that you may not be as intimate as you think you are. Yeah.